We are live. It is Empire State of Baseball on this Wednesday, December the 27th, 2023. It's episode number 71, airing on Twitch, X, and YouTube. And as always, powered by StreamYard. And gentlemen, we are back. We are past the holidays. We are having that holiday hangover. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Festivus. Whatever holiday you celebrate out there. I'm being joined by Tom, Corey, and Joe. As always, fellas, how we doing? Tom, what's going on?
Just living the dream out here in the weirdest week of the year between Christmas and New Year, when you don't know if you're supposed to work, or like if you're at work, do you have to do anything? It's it's a weird time. You just kind of get to do whatever you want, and you don't know what day it is or time it is. There's always a college football game on. It's like the Twilight Zone out here.
Yeah, it was really about 7 people in my office today, and we packed it in about 2 hours early. It was a slow day. Thankfully, it's the only day I go in this entire season, entire week. I mean. So we're looking good there. And listen, I hosted Christmas for the first time. It went very well. But man, I got so many leftovers. I've eaten the same meal 3 days in a row. So I'm looking for anything. I gotta go out and get some like Chick-fil-A or something to change it up tomorrow.
Yeah, you're gonna have to.
I hope you were saving that
leftovers are definitely a bit crazy when you're hosting different parties and whatnot, holidays especially. A lot of leftovers, and at least you don't have to worry about cooking for a while. I know that's the last thing you want to do right now, Joe. But some leftovers are good, and we could have a whole bracket in if we wanted to one day too. Rich, I know you and Chooch had the Chooch Christmas podcast the other day. We could do a podcast of best leftovers on a future Christmas Chooch episode. But definitely there are some good leftovers and there are some bad leftovers. So
I unlocked the key. It's very important to bring up. I unlocked the key to leftovers this year for Thanksgiving. All you need to do, you take a skillet, put it on the stove top, heat it up. And you put, you know how when you microwave mashed potatoes, stuffing, it gets gross. You put it in there with some butter, and you just kind of you warm it through. It comes out just as good as it was when it was fresh. It was a game changer after Thanksgiving this year. I recommend anyone else trying it. It takes it's gonna take you 10 minutes, but it's gonna you're not gonna have gross, dry, lumpy potatoes.
I love it. Tom's tips here for the end of year limbo, as Sean Browning in our chat calls out. Shout out to Sean Browning and those of you who are tuning in today. We thank you so much. We appreciate you so much. It's a weird week, as we all mentioned here. But we are coming off an even odder weekend of baseball coverage. Of course, the Yoshinobu Yamamoto story came to an end officially today, because he did pen his contract officially with the Dodgers for 12 years, $325 million. We are going to talk about that. We also are going to cover Shohei Ohtani. Yeah, it's been a while since we've done our last show. So we're going to be talking about what the Dodgers have done, their impact to the rest of Major League Baseball, and how they've created the new land of the rising sun in Los Angeles, I'd like to call him. There's Corey coming in with the widescreen. Good man. Looking great. Alrighty. So, yes, we're calling it the new land of the rising sun in Los Angeles. And before we get into the nitty-gritty,
I don't think we're calling it. I think Rich is calling it. I want to put it out there.
You're right.
For the record. The rest of us are not calling it that. That is a Rich Rivera special.
It is the new land of the rising sun when they start bringing in the other Japanese imports, and Sasaki signs, and Murakami has conversations with them. It's going to be an intriguing next few years of Los Angeles Dodger baseball. We're going to talk more about that. But first, I see 3 studs, including myself, wearing Rollback merch here. Joe, come on, man. You got to get on the Rollback train here. What are we doing? But anyway, enough of Joe. Tom, what do we got on our friends over at Rollback following the Christmas season?
Listen, so here's what I want everyone to do. I know a bunch of you probably got some Visa, some MasterCard gift cards for Christmas. You don't know what to do with it. Do I just spend it on Amazon? Do I use it to buy coffee? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go over to rollback.com, and I want you to buy yourself a gift card. Then I want you to fill your card up with some extremely comfortable polos, Q-zips, hoodies. I bought a vest from them, like a outdoor vest. Incredibly comfortable, like more comfortable than the North Face one I had before. I want you to fill that card up. I want you to use promo code TWASPL15, and you'll get 15% off your first order as long as you have a new email address that you're using. Rich and Corey, I know they've recently purchased, and I'm gonna turn it over to them and say, like, what do they think? Because again, I've been sporting this stuff for a couple of years now. What are your guys' thoughts on the period?
Yeah, no, I will say I love it too, and I'm in a weird stage right now where I'm kind of in between sizes, but this is a great. I got a nice extra. I'm a big guy, nice extra large, fits perfectly, very comfortable too. I got the performance polo. I could see myself wearing. I wear short sleeves year round, so this is going to fit perfect in the summer too, on a hot day, or pretty much any day. It fits very comfortably too. I give it a nice A rating. If I was going to give a letter grade, nice 9 out of 10. I really like it a lot, and definitely recommend it to the group.
See, this is why Rhoback is got to be loving this right now, because not only do I see 3 Rhoback apparel, I see 3 different types of Rhoback apparel. Corey's got the polo, Tom's got the hoodie, and I got the Q-zip. But, listen, they're reinforcing the dress code at my job. They're reinforcing it. You can't wear a hoodie like Tom.
No basketball shorts for Rich anymore, guys.
No basketball shorts, no joggers anymore. I can't come out there looking like Run DMC back in the 90s with the joggers on. Corey, the polo's a little too cold for me in the office. So I got the perfect thing to measure both the cold and the heat sometimes, because sometimes they boil it up. I got the Q-zip. It's comfortable. It's athletic. I feel like I can actually play ball in this as well. So it's great in the office. It's great.
Well, you have to be able to play ball in the first place, but that's another story.
I played ball more recently than you have, Sarah. When was the last time you picked up that softball bat?
I mean, I might have picked it up to move it out of the way to put some Christmas decorations up, if that counts.
All right, let's get to the baseball now.
Let's get back to the baseball, because Joe feels left out, as he should be. Joe, get back on that Rhoback. Come on, man. All righty, let's talk some Los Angeles Dodgers baseball, which, is normally not our forte, but obviously they are capturing most headlines here this offseason. And, we're talking Ohtani, we're talking Yamamoto. We also forget they also did make a trade for Tyler Glasnow, pretty good pitcher when he stays healthy on the field. So the Dodgers are just running roughshod over. I said that completely wrong. They're dominating this offseason. So let's talk Yamamoto. We'll talk Ohtani here, because it's been weeks since we talked about our last offseason hot stove. Let's get into Ohtani. $700 million, 10 years. Of course, he's deferring $680 million of that in $68 million payouts from 2034 to 2043. Joe, what are your thoughts on this whole Shohei Ohtani Dodger situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all kind of knew or had the idea that the Dodgers were the preferable location. We knew he wanted to stay in Los Angeles or in Southern California if he could. We knew that the preference was to win, and the Angels weren't going to give him that. So, it really started to become a Dodgers, and where else would he go? So it came out late that the Blue Jays all of a sudden had gotten involved in the sweepstakes, and they were tracking a plane that ended up being Rob Herjavec and not Ohtani, and all this stuff was just going out there. Meanwhile, Ohtani's sitting on his couch kind of laughing, knowing that he's the only person who's going to break this news because he hasn't talking to anybody. So the Dodgers turn around, they give him what he wants. Apparently, he is the one who constructed this deal to be like this with the deferrals. It, by all accounts on the CBA and all discussions I have seen, is completely legal. It is completely something that the owners have intentionally left in there for now. And this contract, this kind of deferral structure where the player is making basically $2 million base salary over the next few years, this only works for the tippy top superstars in the game. Ohtani reportedly earned $40 million in endorsements last year. This is something that normal players can't do this. Ohtani can do this because he makes a salary equivalent to what he should be making on the field off the field. So that's why this works for the Dodgers. The Dodgers turn around, get their guy for $700 million, and at the end of the day can build a team around him. And that was his biggest concern. And of course, they've done that. They went out and signed Yamamoto. They went out and traded for Tyler Glasnow and then extended him. So the Dodgers are locked and loaded, ready to go. They have probably 3 of the best 10 hitters in the sport right now. In him, Betts, and Freeman. They are going to be a powerhouse, and it basically is going to come down to whether or not they can get enough innings out of their starting pitchers.
Yeah, I know Bobby Bonilla always gets the quote-unquote retirement package comment when it comes to his deferrals, but I don't think anything is going to top this deferral deal with Ohtani and the Dodgers, at least not in the next 5 to 10 years. Maybe this is the way of the future, TBD. But like Joe said, I think it really takes a superstar-type player. And when it comes to Ohtani and marketability, we've seen his face a lot in this country. But imagine Japan. And, the 4 of us have not been to Japan over the last few months for sure. Just imagine that marketability back home, too. I'm sure he's making a ton of endorsements, both here, back in his home country, across the world. Ohtani right now is the face of baseball. And you could make the case, go back just a few years ago. It was always Mike Trout. Mike Trout was the face of baseball. And one of the biggest criticisms we had was that MLB did a absolutely terrible, atrocious job from a marketing standpoint of marketing your best player. Ohtani is now your best overall player, and I'm starting to see his face in a lot of different places. And you see his face up there. It's Ohtani. And I used to say this back when I was growing up as a kid. My grandma knew who Barry Bonds was by name, knew who Mark McGwire was, all these different guys in baseball. If my grandma was still alive today, there's no chance she knows who Mike Trout was. But maybe now with Ohtani, that they are doing a better job. And maybe Ohtani's name is out there more. So marketability, I definitely agree with you there, Joe. I think it does take a higher-end player for this deferral because, again, $2 million a year. I wish I was making $2 million. I'm nowhere close to making $2 million a year. I wish. But when you had a chance to make 25, 30, 40 million a year, now you're only taking 2 and you're deferring the rest of it after you probably are retiring from the game of baseball. That's a lot of money being pushed to your future. Things happen in life. Life takes various turns, some for the better, some for the worse. But that's a big gamble to take. But he is making a ton in endorsements. We'll see what ends up happening. I don't think this is the norm for all contracts. It's not going to be. But for a pure superstar like Ohtani, a top 3 player in the game, bar none, this could be the future. We'll see. I don't like it necessarily, but you got to embrace change, I guess.
My biggest problem with this whole thing is how the deferral allows the Dodgers to skate away from the luxury tax. I think if you're paying him $700 million for 10 years, they should be paying this. It should be $70 million a year on it because not only are the Dodgers saving the $68 million of paying him now, but they're also then not being taxed on that $68 million. So really they're saving like 80, 90, $100 million a year by doing it this way. And if Ohtani wants to defer that money, I think that's fine. Like good for him and good to, help the Dodgers build the team. But that's not fair, frankly, to other teams that they're just not paying that tax. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Now I understand the players union would accept that because that just allows more guys to make more money, and owners like it because it's more creative accounting. It just doesn't sit right with me, and I would hope, I don't know who would address it because I think both sides are kind of okay with it. It just feels wrong that they're able to skate away like that.
Well, I think the small owners are going to be the ones that object, and I obviously there's nothing they can do about it now. But
they'll object, but they're also that rule was put in place really for them. Like it was to allow a team like, let's say the Royals say, listen, we can't pay you $100 million for $20 million a year, but maybe we could extend it out like that. That rule I really feel like could benefit teams like that. And I feel like the Dodgers taking advantage of it just doesn't, like, that's not the intention of that being put in place. And
but
it just doesn't sit right.
The problem with it is the beneficiary of the luxury tax is also the small teams. So the small teams are going to have a problem extended deferrals out, while at the same time, especially in uncertain markets, teams like the Rays and the Oakland Athletics and stuff, where you're not sure if you're going to be there in 10 years. You're now committing to the franchise when they might not be there, but they're supposed to be the beneficiary of the luxury tax. They're supposed to make the money off the Dodgers exceeding the thresholds, which, again, the Dodgers are exceeding the threshold this year, at least the third tier. They're probably going to get to the fourth tier threshold this year, but the Steve Cohen tax, but it's going to be close. But at the end of the day, they've reduced the hit on that, and that money goes directly into the pockets for the competitive balance. So it goes to the poor teams like the Royals. It goes to the poor teams like the Guardians and others, and that's what makes them able to spend more money on players. Now, the Royals have spent money this year, which is great. You like to see it. They're looking for a division title, but at the same time, I think when we get to that 2026 CBA and the owners sit down and say, hey, there's 7, 8, 9 owners that don't like this the way it's currently structured, they'll come up with a way to limit it to be not as ridiculous as this Ohtani thing was. But at the moment, this is the way it's going to be until the next CBA.
And that was going to be my next question. To think of a realistic standpoint, the current CBA runs through 2026. So obviously a new agreement has to be done prior to the 2027 season. Can this be something that gets realistically negotiated where you can get the players to agree that they cannot defer salaries the way Ohtani just did? Is there a fine line that needs to be crossed? Or is this something that just can't be overturned? Because I don't want to go through another lockout again, boys. I don't know about you.
I think the issue is this only could happen to Ohtani. I don't think anyone, like Aaron Judge, wouldn't have done this, and I don't blame players not wanting to do it. Like Ohtani becoming,
nor would the ever agreed to it.
I mean, maybe they would if they had to, but like I don't think another player would sign for that much money and only get paid $2 million a year. I know that a lot of the other Dodgers do have deferred money. Betts does, I think Friedman does as well, not to this extent. But Ohtani, in a million ways, is a unicorn, and the fact that he makes money off the field, even guys like Judge and guys like Mookie Betts and other like just faces of baseball, they don't make a tenth of what Ohtani makes off the field. Like Ohtani makes so much more than them that he's the only one who really can afford to do it. And I don't know when you're going to see the next guy who can command that. So it's kind of a moot point. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't.
I mean, it depends. Remember Ohtani played professional baseball in Japan. He probably has money from that as well. He is by all definitions a unicorn in everything he does. So this is a unique contract. Unless we see just a rapid succession of contracts like this, I don't think that you're going to see you're going to see a limit on it because this is excessive, and you're going to see something that rules out the excessive. But I mean, Max Scherzer, what was it when he first signed with the Nationals? He deferred payments for, I think they kick in next year for $15 million a year from the Nationals for 4 or 5 years. So he has a lot of deferrals, but we've never seen the majority of a contract be deferrals.
You're never going to see this again.
Right.
At most, maybe you'll see half of a contract. Never 68 of the 70 million.
It's absurd,
unfathomable what they're doing.
And
whatever. It's just, I don't know. It's just.
Yeah, and I'm taking a look right now as we speak at some of the deferred payments right now, and the two big ones that come to mind, both with the Nationals. All right, so if you want to talk about per year, all right, per year deferral, the cake is by far none. Steven Strasburg, 2027, 28, and 29. So it's only 3 years, not terrible. But he's going to be getting 26.6 a year for those 3 years. And then you look at Max Scherzer, on the other hand, a little more spread out between 2022. So he actually got a payment from the Nationals last year through 2028, and that's $15 million a year. That is a lot of money. And you want to talk about
like Mets. All right, Bobby Bonilla again always takes the name. Oh, it's Bobby Bonilla Day. The next biggest Met right now on the list, number 3rd on this list, is Francisco Lindor, making $5 million from 32 through 41. I mean, that is absolutely nothing compared to Ohtani. It's not even much compared to Strasburg and Scherzer too. So interesting with the deferred money. Again, I can't see a player outside of Ohtani getting this type of deal. It does bring up some good questions with the CBA. And I saw Sean's point in the chat. Do we think a salary cap could be in the future? I don't think they ever get to a formal salary cap. I just don't think that's an agreement that both sides will come to agree.
The players would would just they would strike. They would not. They would not. They'd have to get I can't even imagine what they'd have to be offered.
I don't know.
They'd have to the salary floor would have to be so high for them to consider that. I don't think it's a non-starter.
Correct. I think the one middle ground, and Rich, I'll actually hand it back to you to see your thoughts on a possible middle ground proposal here with the new CBA. What if there was a way where, I mean, deferred money, I used to always think it was in the instance of, right, it gives you a little flexibility now. Your payroll situation 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now might be completely different. More revenue, some money off the books. It's a completely different world. You're deferring it to the future. You can plan for it. What if there's a middle ground? Don't ban the deferrals. I mean, you want to do something crazy like the Ohtani deferrals, go ahead and do it at your own risk. But what about having the penalty aspect of it always be true to the dollars and year? So if it's a 10-year deal, I'm just going to use nice, easy math. 10 years, $100 million. Each year, you're being taxed $10 million against the luxury tax. So changing the rule of the luxury tax.
That's how I started. That was my whole thing when I started this. Was they should get it should be $70 million against the tax.
Exactly.
That's what it should be. If he was okay with getting the actual money later, that's fine. But he's going to be there for 10 years. Like that's when he should be. That's what the tax.
And I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Defer at your own risk.
I think the way it works, as far as the luxury tax is concerned, it's essentially it goes to the end of the deferral and it evens out over.
It goes to like that's how like they said it's not.
It's like over 20 years.
Well, because it's not they like the way they do it is like instead of saying it's not essentially a 10-year $700 million contract. It's like 10 years $460 million because they do it based on like inflation and everything. So they figure by the end of this payment, it's going to be an actual real world buying power dollars, like 460 something. That's why the luxury tax number is 46 million. But
yeah, it's 46,081.
Yeah, my point is if you're paying them 70 million, you're getting tax on top of that. You're essentially your tax number should be like $140 million on Ohtani, and instead it's 46 million. So like you're saving $100 million a year by doing like this with the loophole.
And I just did the quick math, and if you really break it out, because it is essentially a 20-year deal. You know, you're thinking about the first 10 years of him playing, and then the next 10 years of him getting the deferred salary. You just do the 700 divided by 20, it's 35, and that doesn't really do the Dodgers much. And they probably don't do a deal with Yamamoto, which we're going to get into in a little bit. So I was more curious on that, but it's a very interesting strategy. I lean towards what Tom is saying, though, because this situation is so delicate, and Ohtani's literally in a class of his own that I just don't see a lot of players being able to do this. Ohtani and endorsements alone is going to make a killing. The $2 million that turns on the lights for his pantry closet. Like, this don't matter to him. It's the endorsements he's killing it in, and then he's going to make an extra $680 million over the next 10 years after he's done playing with the Dodgers. So we're going to get into Yamamoto, obviously, because that's the biggest news as of late. But I want to talk about the streams on Twitch and YouTube. We got a lot of activity on YouTube tonight, and we want to thank you all for joining. Sean Browning has been lighting up our chat. We thank you so much. Keep those comments rolling in, and send that link out. Let's get a subscribe on YouTube as well. But Corey, what's the haps on Twitch and YouTube? What do you got?
Yeah, Twitch and YouTube. Again, as Rich mentioned, these are the two ways to watch us live. In addition to X, you can go on X on our profile. It does pop up on the feed there. But for Twitch and YouTube, we are airing live. Go ahead, download both apps. You probably already have YouTube on your phone. If you like the Twitch route, if you're a gamer, get the Twitch app on your phone. The good thing with Twitch, too, you'll get a notification as soon as we go live, so you'll never miss a show. Sometimes a day like tonight, it's not a typical Monday night slot. It's a Wednesday night in the middle of the week. You will get the notification as soon as we go live. So go ahead, download both apps and subscribe to Empire State of Baseball for all of your live feeds.
Nicely done, sir. Yeah, obviously we could not go live this Monday for obvious reasons.
Correct.
But when we get back on the horn for more episodes of Empire State of Baseball, we're going to update you guys along the way we'll be live at our normal Monday at 8:00 p.m. slot when the time comes. All right, let's switch gears now. And not really, because obviously we're talking about the Los Angeles Dodgers, as I keep continuing to call them the new land of the rising sun. Although the 3/4 of my co-host doesn't like that name. I don't care. You call it Japan. They said Japan West in the chat. I saw that before. But it is the new land of the rising sun, because Yoshinobu Yamamoto for the next 12
east
years
of Japan.
in 320. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
East of Japan, West Coast.
Right.
So,
man, no, social studies. I suck. All right, so Los Angeles Dodgers.
Asia is known as the Far East, so it would be.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, 12 years, $325 million, headed to the Los Angeles Dodgers. And we'll pull up the Yamamoto profile as we talk Yoshinobu Yamamoto. So, Thomas, I'll start with you here on the Yankee perspective, because obviously this move affected not just our fan base, but both fan bases. But I'm going to start at the Yankees end of the spectrum. When you heard the news that Yamamoto dropped and headed to the Los Angeles Dodgers, not the Yanks, not the Pinstripes, what was your initial feelings, and how do you feeling now, a few days later?
Curse words, probably, okay. Some not as family friendly words. It's just, it seemed like there was a good chance the Yankees had of landing him. And, at the end of the day, and he said it in his press conference today, he wanted to be a Dodger. And he actually even said, I believe either, he prepared some amount of a speech or whatever, a statement in English. And then obviously with the interpreter saying that even if Ohtani didn't sign with the Dodgers, he probably wanted to sign with the Dodgers. That's where he wanted to go. I think he basically used the Yankees and the Mets to up his dollar amount, which, hey, that's part of the game. I get it. It seemed like it would have been a good fit, and it was just the kind of disappointing, and it was such a long process. It was, we all know Baseball Writers Twitter this year has been a rough go this offseason, and it was getting the constant, we're getting close, here's this happening, and like to the point at the end there where Yamamoto is going to go to the Rams game. Now he's not going to the Rams. It became too much. It really did. And I almost at the end was just like, at least it's over, and like let's move on. Because it was a drag. I'm sure you guys felt the same way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it got a little ridiculous at times. So, and listen, to have this much activity around a free agent player, let alone a free agent player that never pitched in Major League Baseball before, was so fascinating. And the fact that you had the three biggest markets in baseball, or at least the three wealthiest teams in baseball, going at it for the same guy was extremely fascinating, let alone the fact that the Mets and Yankees were in on the same guy, which never happens. So from my standpoint, I look at this in two ways. There's one winner, obviously, which is the Dodgers, and there's two losers in the Mets and Yankees. I think the Mets and Yankees are losers for different reasons. The Mets are losers because they needed him the most out of the three teams. He would have been a bigger difference maker on the Mets than he would have been on the Dodgers and Yankees. I think they needed him. They needed that top of the rotation presence. At the end of the day, Yankees have Cole still. They hopefully have Rodon and Nestor Cortez who can rebound and be, top to middle of the rotation guys. The Mets don't have that outside of Senga. The Met and justifiably, he might be a number two starter. He might not be an ace, and this guy's supposed to be an ace. From the Yankee perspective, the Yankees are a loser, not only because they missed out on the guy, but this is the first time that I can remember that we have seen a chink in the armor that is the Yankees. And this is the first time where the Yankees have committed to going after a guy and basically not getting their guy. I cannot remember a high-profile free agent that the Yankees have said, we want this guy, and they have lost out on. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I'm not.
There's been some Cano being a big one, especially being in house. Before that, Cliff Lee. There's been some now. I think what the whole process with Yamamoto and the scouting, and they sent a guy in Japan, and like that's different. But I think Cano would still sting more because at the end of the day, he was an in-house guy. He was loved, and he ended up just going for that extra money, which again, it's his decision. But
it's a changing of the guard. The Yankees never lost, or very rarely lost out to anybody. And now I think this signifies that the Dodgers and the Mets are willing to spend beyond what the Yankees are willing to spend most of the time. Obviously, there's exceptions, your own players like Judge. But basically, since Cole has signed, the Yankees, in bringing in top-tier free agents, have been relatively quiet. And I don't think Rodon had an offer out there that was higher than the Yankees. I don't think there was another offer for him at that level. So this is the first time that I can remember. We can, like you said, we have Cano, but I think there was a little lukewarmness on Cano as it was, that the Yankees really lost. And I think that's a kind of a sign to the rest of baseball that, hey, when the Yankees are in, it used to be the rest of baseball kind of backed away or shied away because they knew the last dollar came with the Yankees. I don't think that's true anymore. I think the Dodgers and Mets have both shown that they're willing to go to the next step.
As you would probably imagine, I do disagree with that. Mostly because one, Yamamoto said, "Hey, I want to be a Dodger," and at the end of the day, if he wants to be a Dodger, he wants to be a Dodger. I think the Yankees' offer was better than the Dodgers' offer and the Mets' offer because the offer here it was for less years. And it gave them an earlier opt-out. I think he would have gotten paid like $200 million in the first 5 years of that contract, and then had the ability to opt out at the age of 30, and then go out and essentially sign the same contract or more if he ends up being what he's supposed to be. I think this idea that the Yankees finished third is wrong. I think the Dodgers finished first and everyone else finished last. But I think they had a better offer. I really do. He just wanted to be a Dodger, and at the end of the day, you can't that's what it is. Like,
but he didn't ask the Dodgers to match the Yankees offer. He asked the Dodgers to match the Mets offer.
I mean, he could maybe just preferred that, but you also don't know. That's under the assumption. So, are you saying he would have signed with the Mets? Let's say the Dodgers were out. They're like, listen,
if you are
Ohtani, it was too much money. We can't do it. There's no proof that he was going to sign with the Mets.
If you are bringing the Mets offer to the Dodgers to match, that is under the threat. I am going to take this offer if you don't match. I think that's inherent in that scenario.
I think the Yankees also realized, and the Mets probably did too, that he wanted to be a Dodger. So at that point, if Yamamoto took the Mets offer to the Yankees and said, "Will you do this?" I think they would have. Mm-hmm. But they knew that it was still going to go to LA. Let's get Rich and Corey in here, though.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to the Mets versus Yankee offers from a Yamamoto standpoint, the biggest thing is, and I exclude the Dodge for a second, the Mets versus Yankees debate. Those two offers is, does Yamamoto trust in betting on himself? If he does, the Yankee offer is the better offer. I agree with Tom here in that sense that it's a 10-year deal, so it's 2 less years with an earlier opt-out with an upfront loaded money. All right, you're getting more money upfront over the initial year. So if you're willing to bet on yourself, yes, the Yankee contract is the better deal. Now, if you're saying to yourself, all right, I hit 36, I hit 37 the last 2 years of my contract, do I think with those opt-outs, I have the ability to make up $25 million? Hypothetically, if you live up to your name, you should be able to make up that money, but you don't know. So the $25 million on paper, yes, is better than $300 million, but the terms of the Yankee contract is better. So I don't think of it so much that the Mets beat out the Yankees. I'm not thinking of it that way from a financial standpoint. The way I look at it, and that actually is a negative impact on both of our teams. You could make a case. Go back 10, 20, 30 years ago, more back in time. New York was always the place to be if you want to be sports. I mean, not even just baseball. Mm-hmm. Think of basketball, the Mecca, the Garden. But now across the game, there's this West Coast vibe, and people, I want to go out to LA. I want to play with the Lakers. I want to go out to
people have always wanted to be a Laker.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, it's this West Coast vibe. I want to go out to LA. New York no longer has, and I hate to say this because I'm a New Yorker. I love New York teams, but New York does not have the same pull as it did in years past. Now it's the West Coast vibe. And if you're coming from Japan is a lot closer to California than it is New York. I mean, it's only 5-6 hours less of a flight, but it is a closer presence. Ohtani, the face in baseball, he's from your home country. He's a hero in your home country of Japan. You're playing alongside him. I think the bigger thing is it's not so much the money. Clearly, the Mets are going to spend money now. The Mets of old are gone. The Mets are going to always be there. The Mets are going to be in that conversation to give them money. The Yankees are still the Yankees, and I give Hal credit for offering $300 million on this player. Didn't cheap out and offer $200. He went $300 million over 10. But the bigger issue for both New York teams right now is how do we overcome the lure of the West Coast? And I think what happened is he came to both teams, and he must have liked that 325 number, the higher number. He went to LA, because he went to LA after he met with both New York teams. So he probably got that 3 from the Yankees, 325 from the Mets, went out to LA, said, here's what I got. Can you match or better? Could you match? Because I want to be here. They matched the 325 and he took it. So I think the bigger issue is the lore.
When it comes to Mr. Yamamoto, I think you nailed it on the head right there. The Yankees didn't cheap it out. $300 million, 10 years to a pitcher who's never stepped on a Major League Baseball mound is more than generous. So the Hal cheaping out comments, the Hal swung and miss comments are just wrong. If it's a swing, and the ball was robbed at the fence. I mean, it is a monster contract to offer a pitcher who hasn't had that experience. And it is a risk that you're taking. Yes, he's 25, and I've seen this too. Well, that's the thing, Rich. He's 25. That's why you can offer him a 10-year deal. There is no pitcher worth a 10-year contract unless there's several opt-outs in the mix. The one other positive with that Yankees deal, we mentioned the early opt-out. I believe that opt-out gets him to the age of 29, and I know it's 1 year, but it is more attractive being a free agent pitcher at the age of 29 than it is at 30. Yes.
He's not opting out unless he wins Cy Youngs. I mean, that's just the...
I mean, it's going to be a new CBA. It'll be a new CBA. Who knows what that looks like? And you'll have to see what, who's going to be... I'm trying to think, who's going to get the massive contract before that. If someone gets a 10-year, $400 million contract, and he's been a very good pitcher, like a top echelon, maybe not Cy Young, but a top echelon pitcher, he's going to opt out because he's going to get an extra $100 million for doing it.
As he should. He should try to test that market when it comes. And I'll defend both New York teams here because there was a lot of uniting once the Dodger news was official. It was the Dodgers suck. They all suck. This is borderline illegal. Now, when it comes to Yamamoto, the biggest thing he could have had with New York, whether he pitched with the Mets or with the Yankees, he would have had the Japanese popularity market. Obviously, he's with Senga, and Senga's got the 1 year. But Yamamoto, if his star shined, he was going to be the most talked about guy for the New York Metropolitans. With the Dodgers, that ain't happening. Shohei Ohtani, you have to live in Shohei Ohtani's shadow for the next 10 years at the very minimum. So there are endorsements that are coming your way, and I'm sure they'll come. They're going to ask Ohtani before they ask Yamamoto. So in lieu of being with his fellow countrymen and possibly being a part of super World Series caliber teams, he's going to live in the shadow of his fellow countrymen in Shohei Ohtani. Joe, I know you have more thoughts on Mr. Yamamoto. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's the Dodgers are assembling a fantastic team, but at the end of the day, they have to play.
They might not be. I don't think they're still the best team in the NL. I think the Braves are still better than them.
I mean, that's the magic question. Would you rather have Olsen, Acuna, and Riley, or Freeman, Betts, and Ohtani as in the heart of your order?
But then you also have
fuller pitching rotation.
Also the full pitching rotation, and a team that is gelled and has done it together. I mean,
better bullpen.
I think
Yeah,
falling apart.
Braves are a better team.
Octobers.
They're better defensively.
I still think the Dodgers are the more overall talented team, but I like the way the Braves are assembled more, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, listen. At the end of the day, there's an optic thing. Obviously, the fan base is riled up for both teams. The Mets are clearly going to take a step back. They're going to be competitive this year. They're not going to be a 95 win team by any stretch of the imagination, but they're a mid 80s win team. You know, if they get another pitcher or two in there, they have that potential. The offense is going to be fine. You have Lindor, Nimmo, Alonso. Alvarez is going to have a full season. You're relying on a couple of these guys. So the Mets will be fine, but they're prepping for 2025. They're prepping for Drew Gilbert and Acuna and a couple of these young kids to come up and refresh that team with some youth that is now so prevalent in baseball. I think that's the thing. The Yankees, listen, they have 1 year right now that they need to go all in. They need to go out. They need to find another pitcher. They need to potentially bring in a closer or a premier setup man, and they have to go all in because right now it's Soto and Judge in the heart of your lineup, and then we don't know. The Yankees could be a lot different looking next year than they are this year. Soto is not signing an extension this year. There is no chance that happens. Torres is due to be a free agent. So this is going to be a test year. And yes, the Yankees maybe will re-sign Soto when it all is said and done, but he is going to free agency. So I think that's a big factor. And at the end of the day, you know, the Mets and Yankees got to come up with plan B. I mean, plan A was this guy, and plan B is what? We got to see what they do with it.
Well, we'll talk about plan B because I do see some pivot moves and possible trade possibilities in our chat, and I want to get into that in a little bit. And before we toss it back over to you, Joe, to talk on Instagram and X, I did have one more Dodgers related question. Now, the pressure's on this team. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Is it to a point where anything less than a championship in 2024 is considered a failure to the Los Angeles Dodgers?
Yes. Absolutely. Yep. There's nothing else you can do. There's you brought in Ohtani, you brought in the best starting pitcher on the market. You turn around and traded for Glass now. You have Freeman and Betts who are not getting younger. There's nothing else. Aside from bringing in Josh Hader, which could happen, what else is there to set the expectation higher? I'm sure Kershaw is going to be back when he's healthy. I don't see him going elsewhere. He's going to be back as well. There is no higher expectation. You sign the best offensive player and the best pitcher and the best offensive player and best pitcher all in one on the market. There's nowhere else to go. It's championship or bust. And that's how it's going to be the next 3 years. So then the question is, how bad do the Dodgers, how bad are they allowed to miss? And guys like Dave Roberts and Friedman and those guys keep their job. That's the question. You can't get bounced in the the NLDS. You can't do it. Roberts will be out of there on a rail. And Freeman, I mean, eventually you got to bring home a World Series in a normal season. You know, 2020 is only going to get you so much credit. And at some point, when you bring in all the best players, you have to win one. This is it for the Dodgers. They have to win one. Now, if they get knocked off in a Game 7, win a thrilling series against the Braves to go to the World Series, maybe. But short of that, you can't get knocked off by the Diamondbacks. You can't get knocked off by the Phillies. You're a better team by miles. You got to win a championship. Period. End of story.
Absolutely. So we're going to move on from there. And I agree. Anything less than at least anything less than a championship appearance is considered a failure. We've talked about it at length on the show, how hard is it to not only win a World Series, just make a World Series? Look at the crapshoot of teams that we've seen over the last few years in between all the super teams that the Dodgers or the Padres created. How about the 3 years that the Giants won when nobody had them even pegged to be a playoff team in that 5-year span? The Nationals, for instance, even the Phillies in 2022, no one expected the Phillies to make a run that they had. Just get to the World Series and, anything can obviously happen. But for the Dodgers, pressure's on them. More than ever, more than all the super teams that they had, having Manny Ramirez back in the day, Andrew Jones in his prime, sorta, Manny Machado. This is that team. This team is the super team of super teams that they are putting together. Anything less than a championship appearance is a failure. We are going to move forward, though. We get a lot of good comments in the chat, including our boy here, Neitha Ramachandra of the NR Hour Sports Show. Dodgers are championship or bust every season now, it seems like. And they're a team that's consistently in the conversation. Even Joe had his doubts early in the 2023 season, had the Dodgers missing the playoffs. He still made the playoffs, even with a depleted roster. But they still find a way to get there. All righty. Joe, Instagram, X, and then we're going to talk pivot moves. What do you got?
Yeah, you can follow us at Empire State of Baseball on Instagram and X. You can follow Corey at Corey Favaloro, myself at JR Pugs, Rich at Rich A. Rivera, and Tom at T Waspel on Instagram. And then on X, we are at ESB Podcast, at G Gory, at JR Pugs, at Rich J. Rivera, and at T Waspel. Rich screw me up putting both of them on there when Corey's got two different handles on each one.
He was never known as at Corey Favaloro on Instagram. It's always been at Corey Favs on IG, at G Gory for whatever reason on X. So if anything, Corey's got to fix the X.
Question dating back to probably 2011. So
probably
we're gonna leave that one to Corey, but that's what you could do. Follow us on X. Also on X, we have a new announcement. We have added subsidiary accounts off and I'm going to blame Rich for not putting this on here.
He's right.
Rich and Tom are going to run our at ESB New York Yankees account, NYY, and me and Corey are going to run our at ESB NYM account, New York Mets account. You can follow both of them on Instagram. You can see us. We'll be a lot more active in talking about our teams, talking about things that maybe we disagree with, things like that. So everybody knows which side of the aisle it's coming from. Sometimes we tweet from at ESB and half the fans don't like it. Half the fans do like it. And nobody knows whether we're a Met or a Yankee account. We're both. And the idea with having these two accounts for you to follow is to entertain you and to show you that is what our show is about. We want to show you that we are loyal fans of both the Mets and the Yankees, and even disagree. Met guys might have a comment on the Yankee guys or vice versa.
Yeah, and listen, here's the thing. Rich and I are going to probably stick to the Yankees because we don't care about the Mets. The Met account probably will have a good amount of Yankee takes because they are obsessed. Well, one half of the account is obsessed with the Yankees, and I understand why you would be. It's just being the most popular sports franchise in the world. It's tough being little brother. And, we don't care about what goes on with little brother that much. So, if you want to talk about Mets, you're not going to see that on NYY account.
And an extra shout out to Nathan, who also shouts us out a lot on X and Instagram and gives a lot of love. So I want to give that love right back to the NR Hour Sports Show. Next Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024 at 1:00 p.m. Eastern. That's screwing me up that next week is 2024, guys, by the way. 1 p.m. Eastern, as we have former MLB outfielder Corey Hart coming on the show.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good get. Looking forward to that. And we appreciate, of course, your kind words as always. I got some DMs saying, hey, could I join the show? And that's something, it's an idea that we're going to be talking about for 2024 of having possibly a live fan submitted question on the show, almost like a call-in feature if you're calling into WFAN. We'll talk more about that when the season gets a little bit closer. But I did want to talk about pivot moves while we have a few minutes left of tonight's show. So where does this leave the Yankees and Mets? Of course, you can still follow us at ESP NYY and ESP NYM as they still have the thing up. But what pivot moves are available for the Mets and Yankees? Tom, we'll start here with the Yankee side of the house, and then we'll toss to the Joe and Corey for the Mets. What would be your next move for the Yankees to make? And it doesn't have to be a starting pitcher, but what's the move for you that's out there that's intriguing you?
So if we're going the bullpen, they've been linked to Jordan Hicks, and I think that would be a good addition to the bullpen. Another high leverage reliever. I think Holmes is still probably the closer, but you could go hot hand between Hicks if they signed him, Holmes, and Loaisiga. I do like that. And in starting pitching, I have been beating the drum for Shane Bieber. I think of of Burns, Cease, and Bieber. I think Bieber would cost the lowest in prospect wise. The Yankees just traded a bunch of prospects for Verdugo and for Soto, and another to acquire Burns. It would really just deplete the farm entirely, and then leaving you no ammunition for future trades. I like getting Bieber back with Matt Blake, where he had so much success in the past. I think that would just make a ton of sense for the Yankees to do. The only way I could see Cease being an option is if the White Sox are trying to cut some payroll and they want to throw Moncada in. Again, a bit of a buy low on him. He hasn't been as advertised as being a former number one prospect in baseball. If they're going to do that, maybe you can get Cease cheaper. But I just think Bieber just feels like a Yankee. It feels like he fits in. I could see him and Cole just like kind of talk pitching. I think it makes sense for him. And that's what I'd like to say.
Bieber is the popular name in the chat. It is my name of choice because it is the simple move. You hit the nail on the head. You trade for Burns or Cease. It's going to cost you some capital, including pitching, which, by the way, the Yankees lost 10 pitchers in their system between the Verdugo, the Soto trades, and the Rule 5 draft that people forget about as well. They lost big guys in Mitch Spence and Matt Sauer, who were top 15 prospects at the time. For the Yankees, of course. So the Yankees are not in a position right now to start dealing more of their farm in terms of pitching goes. So they need to try their best to retain guys like Bieber and Will Warren, because guys are going to get hurt too. You see the Yankees also have to bring up pitchers over the last couple of years because guys simply got hurt or displaced. And then you saw Clark Schmidt pop in there. You saw Michael King evolve from a reliever to a starter. You saw Luis Gil, Domingo Germán from years back. So you got to keep some depth ready in your 40-man roster just in case guys go down, or better yet, guys get ready. I saw this deal that was, there. Emmanuel Clase, Shane Bieber, Jose Ramirez. Is it possible that you could work on a blockbuster package? And I would say yes, just pick up a copy of MLB The Show 23 because that's the only friggin' way you're going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to trade, I mean, you got to trade. If we're gonna take it seriously, you have to trade. I mean, Spencer Jones, he's gonna have to go. You're gonna have to trade Dominguez. You're gonna have to trade.
Volpe's got to be in there too.
Volpe's probably in there too. Yeah, I mean, you got to give. And frankly, all these are for Ramirez. I don't think Bieber is gonna cost a crazy amount. Clase would definitely cost something decent. But I think you're gonna need Bieber's gonna require like one top 5 to 7 prospect, like someone in that range, and then maybe like a throw in something that they're interested in would be my guess for Bieber. I think when we talk about Burns, if you want to get Burns, you're gonna trade a top 2 or 3 prospect for him, and I guess if you can make it happen, you're all in, and might as well be all in. But it just seems like a lot to give up.
Yeah, Bieber's a move for me. Let's flip it to the Mets side, though. Corey, Joe, same question. What would be your pivot move or moves on the Mets end? Now you have to move on from Yamamoto. We'll start with Corey, then Joe. Take it from there.
Yeah, no, I do think the move is pitching, and the Mets, I mean, Yamamoto, obviously starting pitcher, best one on the market, but the Mets' biggest need is starting pitching. I mean, right now you're going into a season with Tylor Megill as your number 3 starter. Tylor Megill cannot be your number 3 starter. I'm sorry. It just cannot be. I actually proposed a question on the ESP New York Mets Twitter account, and the move that I agree with finished 3rd place. So I will read off the results of the ESP poll, and then I'll explain why I think the ESP people are wrong. The fan base wants to trade for Corbin Burns at 37%. And when it comes to Corbin Burns, granted, I would love Corbin Burns. I would only do it if an extension is immediately followed, similar to how the Dodgers did the extension after their trade. However, I just don't see it happening. I think right now the New York Mets, They want to stick with the prospects they have. And I'm fully bought in on that. Fine. You want to do that route? Fine. I agree with it. I just don't see the Burns move happening. The second most popular move, and again, all I said was if the Mets were to make one substantial move this offseason, what would it be? The people then called for Cody Bellinger. And don't get me wrong, the Mets do need an outfielder. Cody Bellinger would be a great get. But again, the biggest need for the Mets is pitching. I think the Mets offense, when healthy, could be a middle-of-the-pack offense in baseball. But the pitching staff, as it stands today, is the worst rotation probably in my lifetime of 32 years. So they have to go with a starting rotation. The third most popular pick, and this is the one that I would have went with, was Jordan Montgomery. And I go with Montgomery for a few reasons. This is a guy who's already done it in New York, granted the other side of town, but he's been in New York. He's been in what at one point in time was the tougher division, the AL East. He's a guy who gets the job done. I could go out there and trust him to go out and get me 30 starts in baseball, the majority of them being quality starts each day that he's going out there on the mound. And I also want a pitching move that's not just for this year. I mean, I know we brought in Luis Severino. The Mets are taking a bit of a gamble there, but that's a one-and-done year. Luis Severino could win the Cy Young, but guess what? He's going to free agency next year. He might not be back. I want a pitcher who I could count on being there 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. The only guy on the roster is Kodai Senga. I think he has an opt-out after year 3. So we have guaranteed 2 more years of Kodai Senga, and that is absolutely it. Quintana's a free agent. I don't know what McGill's going to bring. Peterson's hurt. I mean, Severino's a 1-year deal. I would go out Jordan Montgomery. He is not an ace, but he is a middle-of-the-rotation guy who's going to take the ball every 5th day, get the job done, and put your team in a position to win. And then the last place vote for ESB was Josh Hader. They can kind of build some sort of super bullpen with Diaz and Hader. But if you're starting pitching is giving up 5, 6, 7 runs a game, your offense is mid-tier at best. You're not going to be in a position to leverage a super bullpen. If you're getting a Mets 2015 rotation with a super bullpen, sure, be my guest. The Mets are not in position to do that. Give me Jordan Montgomery. I want the quality start every 5 days.
Yeah, I think Corey pretty much hit the nail on the head with the starting pitching as the need. I don't even think they're going to go with Montgomery. I think they're going to go with somebody like a Lucas Giolito. Giolito is an up and down pitcher, but the one thing about Giolito, he pitches 32 games every single year. He pitches 180 plus innings every single year. He was on a couple of teams last year, including the White Sox, which find new ways to get into a deeper circle of hell each year. And he pitched well for them. And then he went to the Angels, who collapsed, and then he went to the Guardians, who collapsed. So he kind of bounced around last year. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But at the end of the day, listen, you want a couple of things if you're the Mets. You want payroll flexibility heading into the next few years. You want somebody who can fill out that rotation and pitch 32 games over a 2 or 3 year period. I think Giolito checks both of those boxes. And you don't want to give up a draft pick compensation if you're basically going to tell me you're not going to win this year. So the thing with Montgomery is you got to pay him probably triple what you have to pay Giolito, and you got to give up draft pick for him. To me, I'd rather go the Giolito route. I'd rather hit the kind of soft reset and go into next year. Listen, if you want to go after in Gama or
Imanaga. Why'd you even try it?
From Japan, I can see them kicking the tires on him as well. But at the end of the day, I think that's the route they're going to go. And listen, they need another bat. Whether it's a DH or a left fielder, a Justin Turner has been talked about. I think he fits the Mets perfectly right now. You can look at a Teoscar Hernandez. I don't think they're going to go Bellinger unless Bellinger just can't find a deal anywhere and they see value similar to what happened with Correa last year, which ended up falling upon them anyway. But I think that's the route they're going to go. And then next year, they're going to look to Drew Gilbert, Acuna are going to come up. You got Mike Vassell, a couple of these young pitchers who are going to fill out the rotation. Then they're going to look to go and get a starter. Then they're going to look to trade potentially for a top end of the rotation arm. But at this particular point in time, I'd rather them do the filler moves, try and just eat as many innings as possible. And I think a guy like Giolito is probably going to be the target.
And if you did mention, go for Corey. Sorry.
I was going to say, just to head on Joe's point, I have absolutely no problem with Giolito. I just can't have him being the only move with Severino because that's two risks. Now, if you're going to say you're going out there, you brought in Giolito and Managa. And again, Sean Browning in the chat said 5 years, 150. I think that's a bit much for him. They're saying more of
I think it's going to be Senga. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be more of a Senga contract.
575.
Yeah, 575. If you made the case for 80, I could see that. Maybe a few, less year, a little more money. If you pair Giolito with one more signing, I'm fine with it. I just want to make sure we have at least two guys that we could count on in 25 and beyond. And right now, it's just Senga. And even at Giolito, is he going to get a 2, 3, 4 year deal? We'll see. A lot of people on Mets Twitter right now are saying they don't want to give more than 1 year. He's going to get more than 1 year. But if you compare Giolito with another one of that mid-tier range, like a Managa, I'll take him. That's fine. I think that's a good move.
I think Giolito, you want to sign him to I think you want to sign him to a deal if you can get a team option, because if he does rebound to what he was, you want to be able to get him at maybe that lower rate. I think that's the kind of deal you'd want to put out there for Giolito.
Yeah.
I did like the Mets trade for Adrian Hauser. I did like that move.
Yes,
I think
very much.
A good one, but I'll let Rich
move. And he fits the Trevor Williams role, which I think was talked about on Mets Twitter or X or whatever. I'll end with this note, and if it was mentioned already, forgive me for it, but you also got to remember, if you're going to do short-term deals, the 2025 free agent class for pitchers is one of the best it's been in a long time. Obviously, we talked about Corbin Burns, Zach Wheeler, Brandon Woodruff. Well, Brandon Woodruff will probably get signed now, but if not, he will be available. Shane Bieber, as we just mentioned. Walker Buehler, who obviously is coming back off injury. Max Fried. I mean, these are just some of the names, and there's a few down here who have a pretty good pedigree. There's some club options. Obviously, the Garrett Cole opt-out is looming in there. You have a vesting option on Justin Verlander. I know, Thomas. I know it's not. Let's not hope for it, but I needed to throw it out there.
I can't actually. He's not going to go anywhere. It's not possible. Well, it is, but it's not.
All right, but there is a huge free agent class coming. So if it means minimal moves to get you there, then so be it. But yes, that's it for tonight's show. Thank you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. We're going to send the thank you train around before we do that. Episode number 72, which is our asterisk, because it might be our next scheduled episode. It might not be. We might do another emergency edition between now and then. It's going to be Monday, January 22nd, 2024. Can't believe the New Year's already here. 8 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to reveal the results of our ESBBWAA bout, which you find on X, and vote for and submit those votes for and send that link out to everybody as well. That'd be greatly appreciated. But that will be our next scheduled episode. And if we do have another episode between now and then, we'll keep you posted. But Thomas, get us started on the thank you train, and let's send the fans home happy. What do you got?
I'd like to thank Santa Claus for showing up to the house. Really appreciate old Saint Nick for showing up. Well, he shows up. Like every fifth day. Giolito shows up every fifth day. Santa Claus shows up every year on the 25th.
We got to get this Corey out of here, so I'll keep the thank you. Thank you for Merry Christmas. And I hope everybody had a great care.
Want to thank all of you, friends and family, and also for all of the ESB followers. Sean, Nathan, great conversation in the chat. This was a great year for us. Looking forward to the next year ahead.
100%. Thank you all for tuning into all the episodes of Empire State of Baseball for 2023. We're going to have a lot in store for 2024. Just remember that line. And we will see you in the new year. So once again, happy holidays. Happy New Year. We'll see you in 2024. And